Hello, everyone, and welcome to this year's Healthcare Club information session. My name is James Couch. I'm a second-year student here at Fuqua. Before coming to school, I actually worked at Eli Lilly and Company in Indianapolis for about 4.5 years, and then from there, transitioned to school, and over the summer, I worked for DaVita for my summer internship.
I'm Matthew Pepper. I'm also a second-year student here at Fuqua in the HSM program. Prior to coming to Fuqua, I was a physician practicing in the area, and I spent my summer doing healthcare consulting for a small boutique firm here in the Triangle.
So for today's format, we're going to keep it pretty simple. We're going to spend about 15 minutes going through a presentation. As we go through the presentation, please feel free to ask questions along the way. And after we finish up the presentation, we'll also open up the floor for questions. We'd like to keep this as conversational as possible.
So we like to kind of go over a little bit of some of the frequent questions that we get asked about the Healthcare Club and HSM at Fuqua. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what our club's mission is. We're going to talk a little bit about healthcare at Fuqua and where the Healthcare Club fits into that landscape. Go a little bit over some of the opportunities within the club, the different areas in the cabinet positions, and opportunities for leadership for those in their first year. So first, let's talk a little bit about the Healthcare Club and its mission and goals. So the Healthcare Club is one of the professional clubs we have at Fuqua for people who are interested in going into the healthcare field. And that can encompass a lot of different fields between healthcare technology, IT, healthcare finance, healthcare consulting, payer provider space, and a bunch of other areas as well. So our goals right now is to sort of further the exploration of the healthcare landscape for students that are at Fuqua. We sort of help those students learn about the different areas they can go into, current trends within that space, and get connections so they can start to explore career opportunities. We do that through a bunch of different ways. Very important to us is that peer-to-peer learning. So when you come to Fuqua, you'll notice that you have a very, very diverse student class in terms of their experiences and backgrounds, as well as the actual places that the people are coming from. This provides a wonderful opportunity within the classroom for students to be able to learn about whatever topic that you're discussing in the classroom from the real-world experience of your peers. Just to keep in mind, not everyone who's coming here has healthcare experience. Only about 40% of the HSM program does. So for those of you who don't have a healthcare experience, it's also an opportunity in this setting to first get that exposure to people who've worked in those fields. We'll also help people broaden their career perspectives. Even for those who may have a very extensive healthcare background, it's helpful to hear about perspectives on different healthcare topics from people who may have worked in a different sector, pharmaceutical versus payer, for example. So helping expose people to those different perspectives can help students figure out where they want to work. And finally, we're also an opportunity for community engagement. We want to help connect the students in the HSM program to the further Duke campus as a whole, and along with the community through alumni and through other events that we hold. So looking at the next slide, you'll see that the HCC Club is really one part of the overall healthcare landscape at Fuqua. Other components of that include the HSM program, the Health Provider Association, and the Career Management Center. I typically like to think of the Healthcare Club as the way for students to engage when they want to think about their career opportunities and their career goals. We help connect students to different employers, help them train for interviews, for internships and full-time positions, talk with alumni who've worked in different fields, and generally also act as a social club as well. The HSM program, on the other hand, tends to be more of the actual academic program at Fuqua. It involves the curriculum in which you'll learn about the different things like healthcare marketplaces, payer provider strategy, that sort of thing. The Career Management Center is part of Fuqua that helps all people at Fuqua who need career coaching, career counseling, basically any kind of assistance they can provide for getting internships and full-time positions. And then the Health Provider Association is another professional organization more specifically focused on the provider space.
So within the Healthcare Club, there's a lot of different ways to get involved on the cabinet. We've got quite a few leadership positions that span across different roles. So as you can see, I'm currently one of the co-presidents along with Charlotte Ryan. Our admissions chair is Matthew Pepper, sitting next to me, where we definitely take a lot of initiatives in how we can better engage students, just like this we're doing currently. But other ways that we can really just give students an idea of what it means to be in the Healthcare Club and different opportunities they have to get exposure to different companies as well as involvement on campus. For the alumni relations position, this is really a focus on how can we bring recent grads as well as grads that are in some of these companies and sponsors that we work with how can we get them involved with our initiatives on campus, but then also find ways to continue to get involved with the program. The operations piece the operations chair is involved with a lot of our communication efforts. So that's both internally with the club members, so giving heads up about different job search situations, different programs that we may be putting on. But this is a way to make sure that the club is always engaged and knows kind of what's happening within the healthcare community. Conference, this is our biggest event that we host every year. This year we're hosting it on November 7th, so if you're able to attend, that'd be great to see you there. This is one of our biggest events that we throw throughout the year, and actually really embodies everything the club is about. So there's opportunities for folks to meet some of these employers that they're looking to recruit for, but then also talk about all the hottest topics that are going on in the industry. So definitely a great event to look out for, and one of our largest ones. Our Career and Lifeline, which is formerly known as HEAL, is really the career aspect or career preparation aspect of the cabinet. So this gives students an opportunity to learn not only how to approach the interview, but also how to handle the case interview and learn how to case and things of that nature in a very safe environment that's student run. Weekend Cities is the best way to understand the different job opportunities that are available in different cities across the U.S. We typically host one East Coast opportunity and one West Coast opportunity, and sometime we'll have a Midwest opportunity as well. But basically, we'll go into that city and have a opportunity to see all of the companies that are in that city that are in the healthcare space. So for instance, if we're on the East Coast, we may visit Boston or New York and get a chance to see the biotech firms as well as startups, as well as different providers in the area, but definitely get an opportunity to see where you could work for your internship and then ultimately full-time when you graduate. The Events and External Relations is a way, again, to give students access to some of these external companies as well as build events for the community to continue to build. So one of our biggest initiatives is making the community aspect. And this gives us a way to, again, get to know each other. We're also knowing some of our external parties. Finance, of course, is managing the budget and ensuring that the financials are correct within the organization and making sure we have funding for different events. And then lastly, our international affairs. So we understand that our students is made up of a lot of international students that are looking for recruiting opportunities. International affairs makes sure that those students that are here feel comfortable as they're going through the recruiting process in the U.S., but also make sure that there's opportunities available for them, both in the club and for career opportunities. So the next slide is actually our first year leadership cabinet, which is, again, an opportunity for first years to have these leadership positions that are under some of the cabinet positions that I just went over. We have an outstanding cabinet this year. I'm really excited to get started and hit the ground running with all these great individuals. So definitely be on the lookout for some of them, especially as you start your process and interviewing, things of that nature. This will be a great bunch to get to know, and a lot of them are coming with a lot of career expertise and understanding of the industry. Now, you don't have to be coming from a healthcare background in order to hold a leadership position. In fact, we highly encourage those that have not had that background, just so that we get different perspectives as we're going through different initiatives that we have on campus.
So, and please remember as we go through this, if you have further questions, it's a good time to submit them. There should be an opportunity to also vote on some of the questions if there are ones that you're more interested in hearing as well. And we'll open up the floor to that in just a few minutes.
Yeah. And so the next slide is kind of one of our last slides. It's just some of the key healthcare club events that we've put on both last year and recently this year as well, just so you have an idea of kind of what the cabinet is working on. So Weekend Cities, of course, as I've described, West and East Coast. As you can see, the Career Lifeline events and the alumni mock interviews. This is a huge piece, especially during recruiting, for first years to basically get comfortable and understand the types of questions that are asked throughout the interview process, and have them better prepared for the interviews when they come later in the fall. The News Lunch and Learn series is something new that we started this year, where students have an opportunity to meet with one of our professors, David Ridley, to discuss current events that are happening in the industry and just have a very informal general discussion about those topics. So not only a way to, again, prepare for your interviews as you're going through your first year, so that you're aware of key topics, but just staying on top of all the hot trends in healthcare that's supplements the HSM seminar experience as well. We've also had some initiatives where we've gone across to other clubs where we've had kind of a combined effort on some discussion. So one event that we did this year was the AWIB and Healthcare Club Real Talk. So really, again, having the discussion about what's going on as far as women in professional positions and how does that coincide with the healthcare experience as well. And then lastly, of course, the case prep that's happening, and then the big event November 7th, which is the Healthcare Club Conference. So with the last slide, this is just a view of some of our corporate sponsors. And again, these aren't all the companies that recruit here, but these are the ones that sponsor the club. With that, we want to open up the floor for any questions that you may have. Matt and I are watching online, so any questions that you may have in this time, feel free to send them through. We have a couple that are coming through now. And we'll go ahead and start fielding those, but please send them as you see fit. Again, this is your time, and we want to make sure that we answer as many questions as we possibly can.
All right, so our first question here is sort of what companies did you visit during your Weekend Cities travels, and were the Fuqua alumni involved in those trips as well? So you want to talk a little bit about the different companies that were in the last Weekend Cities that we did?
Sure. So I didn't have a chance to actually attend, but I did speak to some that were on the East Coast. So these are companies like Pfizer as well as J&J. So basically, if you're thinking about kind of the biotechs that are down the New Jersey side, as well as, and I'm not sure of some of the other ones. I don't know if
so on the West Coast, I know Genentech was on there.
Yep.
I did not also attend Weekend Cities, actually, recruiting locally. So one thing that I'd also like to point out for people, Weekend Cities is a great opportunity if it's in an area that you're interested in recruiting in. It is by no means required to attend a Weekend Cities. No company who's going to be on that program is going to look unfavorably upon an application to intern or work there if you don't attend. That may be a little different than some other clubs. I mean, I think some of the, especially the Weekend Wall Street for people interested in banking is a little bit more required. But it is a great opportunity to learn more about those companies. And those connections that you forge in those Weekend Cities can be very helpful as you apply, just so that you have a reference point when you're talking about why you're interested in working for a particular company. The Weekend Cities are also very much run by the students, especially the first-year students. There are some Weekend City chairs that are the first years on the cabinets, and so they're very flexible about exactly where they go and what companies are being seen, depending on student interest for that year. One example would be there's some talk this year about doing a local Weekend Cities in some of the clubs as well. So people are interested in staying in sort of the Durham, North Carolina triangle area. So there's a lot of opportunity for as a first year sort of new member to take a leadership position when it comes to the Weekend Cities, to tailor it to your interests.
Yeah, and just to add to that, so on the West Coast trip, they had an opportunity to not only go to the Bay Area, but also travel to LA and Colorado. And they saw a pretty diverse set of companies out there as well. So they had a chance to see, for instance, DaVita, Genentech, which again is biotech, but then also like the ZSs of the world. So you'll get to see the healthcare consulting side, and then also some other small startups that were in the area. So again, we try to make sure that we're tailoring experience so you get to see all different aspects of the industry that you can work in and not focus specifically on one aspect. And Weekend Cities is a great opportunity to actually see that firsthand.
Yeah, and of course, when it comes to alumni, we always love having contact with Fuqua alum. That's often a way that we can sort of get either a foot in the door or to at least have a good connection with people who work at a company. One nice thing about Fuqua is that a lot of Fuqua alum are very happy to sort of take off their corporate hat and put on their Fuqua hat when talking to you about sort of the true points of positives and negatives working at different companies, talking to you about who you as a student should be connecting with. So it's, I think, one of the strong values of going to Fuqua is also having that strong alumni connection. So we also have a question here. It says, thank you for joining us. Are there any Fuqua graduates that go into healthcare administration in a university hospital setting after Fuqua post-MBA work? Absolutely, that is definitely a career path that is available and one that is taken by several students. I think one of the things to keep in mind is we have a very old HSM program here. It originally started off as part of the hospital system and then moved over to Fuqua in the last few decades. And so there is definitely a focus of allowing people to kind of transition to that role in health administration settings. There's a couple companies that recruit on campus for health administration positions that we see year after year, like Centra Health, for example. And I also know several people who've done internships in hospital administration positions at places like Boston Children's. So it's definitely one of the many opportunities that are available coming through with the HSM program. Let's see. Yeah, I got it. Sorry, I got it. It says, hi, thanks for doing this. My question is more on the HSM program. Can you elaborate more on the program, aside from the curriculum, and how HCC ties in with the program? Sure. So the HSM program really is a certificate that you get when you are doing your MBA. So at Fuqua, we offer several certificates as well as concentrations. Between those two, that you can elect to take up to 2 of those. To get the HSM certificate, you have to do a certain number of classes. Those include a special orientation known as boot camp, as well as taking some seminars in your first year, healthcare markets class, and a couple other electives. I really do focus on HSM as sort of being the academic component. Obviously, I think the classes are very helpful. We're very blessed here to have very good faculty teaching these courses. But it also, I think, gives people a leg up when it comes to interviewing and recruiting. I have many friends who talk about having interviews where the person interviewing them brings up current topics and current trends within healthcare, and the students in the HSM program feel very comfortable discussing those topics because we discuss them in the classroom. Reasons of why companies are merging in the current healthcare space, what the future role of AI and technology might be in the delivery of healthcare. So from that component, the HSM is very valuable, I think, in leveraging that knowledge base into gaining a career in the healthcare system. The HCC and HSM are not totally overlapping. There are plenty of students getting the HSM certificate who are not in Healthcare Club, and there are a few Healthcare Club members who are not part of the HSM certificate program. So while the Healthcare Club is mostly focused on sort of that recruiting and exploration space, there is a pretty significant overlap, at least, with the academic program.
Yeah.
If there's anything else you want to add.
And this year, actually, we have the benefit of having what we call HSM Fellows. So these are students that are really understanding the pulse of the program and providing recommendations back to faculty as far as what we feel should be part of the curriculum as far as classes and who should be coming in to speak to us in the different industries of interest for that class. So this year we actually have a couple HSM Fellows that are actually on the cabinet for Healthcare Club as well as the Health Provider Association. So what we're able to do is take a lot of those insights and also cater those to the Healthcare Club and the initiatives that we do in the club. So that includes which alumni we're reaching out to, which companies we're reaching out to as far as coming for events or potential sponsorship. So we are getting a lot of that. We're able to have those synergies across the organization because we have so many members that are active in so many different pieces of the Healthcare Club as well as the academic side.
Does the Fuqua Healthcare Club collaborate with students from other graduate schools, such as medical students, master students, global health? Yes, we definitely do. Not only do we have some members who are doing dual degrees, so we do have some members who are getting an MD, MBA, for example. We do also try and do some collaboration with their clubs. You want to speak to any specifics of the?
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of that comes through organizations like HPA working with healthcare clubs. So there's a lot of ways that we can work together on different events, whether it's social events or more professional events. We've had numerous amounts of possibilities where or opportunities where we can do that. I would say as far as other grad programs outside of Fuqua as well. So we have a connection with the Healthcare Club at UNC, and we're looking to do events with them as well. And what you may see also is that there's different case studies that are taking place across the business schools across the U.S., and we're able to engage in that way as well. So there's lots of different ways that we've been able to do that.
Yeah, and you'll find that there's a lot of opportunity for that collaboration through the greater Fuqua community, through the graduate professional societies that are at Fuqua as well. So there is a lot of collaboration in that sense. And there are also ways to interact as well through some of the academic courses that you may be taking. So within the HSM program, some of our courses that you can take may be at other schools, like the public policy school or the law school. So there is interaction on that level as well. Okay. Are there events specific to knowledge or experience sharing among students? Sort of more of a casual theme across the activities in general. I'm trying to think of sort of the best way to answer that. So I think in terms of knowledge sharing. There's a lot of within classroom knowledge sharing that I see, where students who may have worked in a certain industry can sort of speak to their experience in whatever topic you're talking about. As far as actual event space, can you think of a specific event?
Trying to think through that. I think we'll get some of that out of, say, like the Lunch and Learns with Professor Ridley. I think what he does is a great job of kind of pulling out the experiences of some of the students who are coming from these different industries. He also does it in his class as well. So to Matt's point, class is a great way where you're having that peer-to-peer learning across all the students. One way that I had it was actually in boot camp. So I actually sat next to Matt in boot camp where he's coming as a former physician, I was coming from the pharmaceutical industry, and we were able to kind of have that peer-to-peer learning and discuss a lot of different topics that we had seen from only one lens at one point and able to understand each other or each other's perspective on certain topics. So you have quite a bit of that in class, and I think there's also informal settings where that happens, whether that's a social event, where maybe we may have a healthcare club event. And in those settings, you also have some of those learning opportunities too. But I think that a lot of that comes from the academic side, but you also get on the social side as well.
Yeah, and even with the broader Fuqua community, you're going to see there's a lot of peer-to-peer learning, especially when it comes to preparing for job opportunities. For example, last year I had some friends that were interested in going to consulting. Know that since they're going to a place that had a generalist model, there was a decent chance they'd be touching healthcare in some form since it's a sixth of the U.S. economy, but didn't have any background and had reached out to me saying, hey, can you give me a 1-hour crash course on what I might need to know about the healthcare space? So even through those sort of more informal interactions, you may see some more peer-to-peer learning as well.
Yeah, I would say one last thing is through the coffee chats that you have. So many of the first years will set up coffee chats with second years to understand their summer internships, but then also any previous industries they might have worked in. There are also plenty of coffee chats between second years, or even second years speaking to first years, just about, again, these types of topics. So trying to learn as much as you can about the industry that they're coming from. And generally across the board, people are very open to have those coffee chats and are interested in having those discussions. So that's also a great way to get that peer-to-peer learning.
So I understand that a healthcare background isn't required, but is it easier from a recruiting perspective if you have previous experience with the industry? I would say it probably is easier just in one sense, which is when you're recruiting for a healthcare job, if you have a healthcare background, they're probably going to skip the question, why healthcare? But other than that, as long as you have a compelling story about why you want to work in healthcare, it really doesn't make much of a difference. Now again, I can only speak to that from my background of having that healthcare experience, but at least conversing with some of my peers who don't, I think that was really the only significant difference that I can see in terms of recruiting.
And I would also say if you're not coming from the healthcare industry, you're, again, offering a very different perspective that is appreciated. And as far as being prepared for those interviews, again, that's where Lifeline steps in and will make sure that you have all the reps that you need. And also if you're in HSM, you have HSM Seminar to make sure you're up on every current event that's happening in the industry. So you'll be well prepared to have those discussions. But I don't think at any point are you disadvantaged for not being in the industry. And me personally, coming from the healthcare industry and the role that I played in this summer, it was completely different than what I had already experienced. So although I had that healthcare experience, it was just such a different aspect. And it's such a big industry, it's difficult to be prepared for everything. So.
Yeah, and again, you might be searching for a different role within healthcare as well. So doing consulting this summer, I had no consulting experience. So while I wasn't asked why healthcare, I certainly got the question why consulting. So you should be prepared that anytime that you're doing something different than what you've done before, just have a good story about why that interests you and why you might be a good fit for that space. Right. But it's certainly not a requirement where you're disadvantaged, I think, if you don't come from a healthcare background. All right. So the club seems to be involved in a lot of interesting activities. I wonder how much time is usually devoted to the club by students. Also, given the TDS curriculum, how much does the school support such activities? The time commitment is really what you make of it. There are people who are very involved, people like James, who takes on, being the president, a lot of activities you have to coordinate. There may be people, especially in the first year cabinet position, where it's a very low time commit for them, maybe only an hour or two a week, if even that, or maybe only during part of the year. For example, if you work on the conference. So really, it's like any of the clubs at Fuqua. You are welcome to put as much or as little time into it. But I don't think that it really is one of those things where you should feel like the school curriculum is overloading you so much that you can't commit to it.
That's perfect.
Okay. All right, great. How diverse is the HSM cohort? So I would probably defer to the CMC to know the exact number. So I would be hesitant to give you exact numbers. We have a pretty large diversity in terms of international students at Fuqua in general. What do you happen to
So
know?
our class was about 30 or 40% for internationals. So you get that population, but then you also get the diversity of people coming from non-healthcare positions as well, or non-healthcare careers. Again, we'd have to talk to CMC on the exact numbers, but I believe in our class it was around 30% or so, 30, 40% also for non-healthcare backgrounds. So you get quite a bit of diversity. And also if you look at diversity from different aspects of healthcare as well. So when you think of pharma versus provider versus payer versus health IT, like we have such a huge mix of students as well from that standpoint, which again offers a different perspective.
Yeah. And the gender balance, I think, within the HSM program pretty much mirrors the gender balance as well within the broader Fuqua community, which in the last year, I think the first year class is 42% female as well, so it's about the same within HSM. So it's a pretty good background, pretty good mix of folks. So, does the Healthcare Club collaborate with other clubs such as general management, marketing, to help you prepare for diverse career opportunities, or does it operate independently?
So we definitely partner with other organizations. So we do not work in a silo. We actually had an event this morning with the AWIB organization, which is the women's organization on campus. We have quite a few events with some of our sponsors. Like for instance, we have an event next week with the VITA, with the General Management Club. So because we have members of either HSM or HCC that are either co-presidents or members of cabinet for other organizations on campus, we have a lot of opportunities to work together on different events and initiatives. So,
yeah, and for example, if people are interested in recruiting for multiple different positions or recruiting for a specific sector within healthcare, it's very common to be part of both clubs. Because I was recruiting for healthcare consulting last year, I went to all of what was then the HEAL sessions and are now the Lifeline sessions, but I also went to what the consulting club put on, which was called the Roadmap, which is talking about how to interview and doing casing. So there is an overlap a little bit between the two, but it was really helpful for me to sort of have that broad base from the consulting club, but then get the perspective of how it's different, or the sort of more subtle nuances within healthcare in general. So there is that sort of overlap as well.
And I think also you're having a lot of these disruptors in the industry now as well. So you're going to have more tech and healthcare involvement together. You're going to have more marketing and healthcare involvement, or finance and healthcare involvement. So you're going to have a lot of that mixing and mingling of ideas and opportunities. So it's only right that we partner with other organizations on campus.
Does Healthcare Club ever do any cross-collaboration with the Tech or Entrepreneurship Club? So very similar, very similar question on that one. Do we ever? I don't know if we've done anything with the Tech Club yet. Have you?
No, there's a member of our cabinet that is actually the president of the Tech Club. So we have some initiatives that we're looking into for the year. So stay tuned for those.
Yeah. And then I sort of as a general comment on that too, one of the nice things about having so much first-year leadership is there's a lot of opportunity where if you see a need to have an event, some kind of programming that you think we should offer, there's a lot of opportunity to do that as a first year. The club is very supportive of students who have an idea for events, giving you sort of the latitude to organize it, propose something. We usually we have a pretty decent budget that we can sort of help kind of work with that as well to host new events. We're always looking for new programming. So if you have something that you think could be important, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, and on the tech piece also, I know that was a huge interest for our class coming in. We expressed that we wanted more health IT opportunities as well as healthcare investment banking opportunities. And that's, again, where HSM steps in and the HSM fellow will step in. So we took that information, or the class before us took that information, and actually put together a health IT or health analytics class. And we also have a health analytics certificate now as well. So as you can see, that the disruptors all this disruption actually caused us to change some of the curriculum, as well as make sure that all of the classes and opportunities that we have perfectly align with the class interest as well. So I think you'll continue to see that and see different ways that we respond to these these different ideas coming together.
Yeah. In general, Fuqua tends to be very good about soliciting feedback from its students and sort of tailoring opportunities based on that feedback. So you'll have opportunities in individual classes to give feedback about the course and the professor, but you'll also have opportunities for programs as a whole. So you'll see through HSM fellows the ability to sort of shape how the HSM program will work going forward. So there's a lot of opportunity to sort of voice those concerns to people who have the ability to sort of shape new classes or shape the ways the curriculum is. Coming from a healthcare background, were there any learning curves you experienced at Fuqua compared to students from more traditional backgrounds like consulting or finance? This is probably a good one for me. I came in with absolutely no business experience whatsoever. I've never even taken economics before coming to Fuqua. That being said, I felt like they are very good here about sort of tailoring the classes to people who don't have that background. While it's awesome to be in these classes with people who have experience in the space, the curriculum is not set up to assume that you already have any background. In fact, as you come in as a first year, they often encourage people who have extensive experience in things like finance, accounting, economics to take exams to exempt themselves from those courses. So they don't want to waste your time, and they also recognize that when you're taking these classes, if you're taking accounting, they're not training you to be an accountant, and so the learning curve isn't too bad. Specifically within the HSM courses, they are tailored for also having those people in there who don't have a healthcare background to easily pick up and understand what's going on in those courses.
Yeah, and just to that point, that's the best part about boot camp is that if you don't have that experience, it definitely will catch you up right away in that first week before we start classes. It's kind of a crash course to make sure that you're up to speed with everything that's going on in the industry. So there's no student left behind whatsoever, and they'll find a way to make sure that if you don't have those tools already, how can we make sure to give them to you as soon as you get on campus?
And a lot of courses too, you'll end up doing a lot of teamwork. Fuqua is very well known for having a very strong ethic of learning how to work in teams. And so as part of that, they often try and balance the experience on the teams as well. It's not completely random because they want to make sure that people who don't have a background in something are working with people who may be more comfortable with the material, and so that you guys can all learn from each other. The club seems to be involved in a lot of interesting activities. We already answered that one about the part about the time involved. Okay. How about the school support for such activities? Do you want to talk about that?
What was the last part? Read the question again.
Given the curriculum, how much does the school support the activities that we do?
Yeah. So I think the school gives a ton of support, especially if you want to get involved in some of these clubs. You get support both from the faculty, you get support from alumni from the school, and they offer an opportunity to make sure that you're given the resources that are necessary to succeed. So whether that's reaching out and bringing an alum for different presentations that you may host, or making sure that you have attendance at some of your events and things of that nature. I think they're very supportive of that, and we're a community that is it's expected that you're involved on campus. I don't know too many people that aren't involved in at least 2 or 3 clubs, and that's the beauty of Fuqua, where it's all student run and student led. So you don't have that issue of getting people to do these things. People are just naturally eager to take on some of these roles. So yeah.
Okay. So a question about how often will leaders in the industry conduct conferences or make presentation on research at Fuqua? So obviously our conference that we hold is one of the biggest events for the healthcare club, and that does involve basically organizing panels and keynote speakers to talk on particular topics. So some are leaders in industry, some are former alumni, to talk about events that students are interested in. The topic for the conference every year, as well as the panels, are chosen by students. So it's things that we are interested in hearing about, and then we go out and find some of the leaders in the field. We do also have other methods in which some industry leaders come to the school. There's a distinguished speaker series, which is part of broader Fuqua, which brings in CEOs of large companies like GM, Procter & Gamble, but also companies like Medtronic. So you'll get this DaVita. So you'll get the CEOs and presidents of those companies that come in and give talks to the broader Fuqua community. As far as research findings, some of the panels may also involve some talk about research, but I think that's a little bit less common, more talking about trends in the overall space. you do get a pretty broad exposure to research that the faculty is doing in your classes. We will have notes, for example, even during orientation for a second year, we had some of our professors present some of their research in that space. Is there anything else that you want to add?
I think the only other thing I would add is the HSM speaker series as well. So you have the distinguished speaker series that's broader Fuqua, and then you have the HSM speaker series that are going to be more tailored to those topics that we asked for either the previous year or during the current year. So this year, again, there's going to be a focus on healthcare and entrepreneurship, healthcare investment banking, as well as healthcare IT or digital health.
Question for me, the food chain, it's just funny. So it says, the doctors are top of the food chain in the current industry I'm in, which is digital healthcare technology. Just curious about what specific area you'll be moving into. That is an excellent question. So I still haven't fully made up my mind, even as a second year. Still deciding between continuing to work in the healthcare consulting space, but I'm also exploring the opportunities for doing part clinical practice and part health administrative work. We're lucky to have Duke here, as their Duke Health System is a very large academic institution, and they have some partnerships that allow them to work almost in a consulting kind of area on projects for innovations in health. So there's a group that takes innovations from other countries and will help kind of bring them back to the US on sort of alternative payment models, or they'll go to other countries and scale up things like population health management programs. So just having access to those kind of opportunities as a student has been really wonderful for me, and is part of the reason it's so hard to make up my mind about what I want to do. Can you tell us more about the conference?
Sure. So again, the conference is November 7th here on campus. The theme this year is Shaping the Future of Healthcare. So it's a broad theme, but that's because we wanted to cover a lot of different topics that are now shaping healthcare in general. So emerging market healthcare is one thing that we're looking into. What are the challenges and opportunities there? Data and digital health, again, an aspect of healthcare that it's definitely something of interest to many of the students here, and then also a reoccurring theme in the industry. So what are the different opportunities that are there and opportunities for innovation? And then lastly, changing the business models in healthcare. So that's including all the disruption that's going on in the industry and having discussions around that. So it's a great opportunity for those panel discussions as well as the keynote discussions, but also this is a great recruiting aspect for the school as well. So all of our sponsors will be there, in addition to a lot of other companies across the U.S. will fly in for that conference and share different opportunities they have within their business that will help our students as recruiting really kicks up in late fall.
Great. Could you share why you chose Fuqua? Did the healthcare club play a key role in that decision, or was it another aspect of the school that helped you realize it was the right fit? Why don't you take that one first?
Yeah, so it was a mix of healthcare club and HSM. So similar to you, I was reaching out to first years, second years, watching different webinars, things of that nature, and I knew that healthcare club had a huge involvement on campus. And then the HSM program in general, I knew I wanted to continue in healthcare, and I wanted to learn all the aspects of healthcare outside of pharma, which I was currently in. So I knew that I wanted to be a part of a program that had a very strong and reputable healthcare piece of it, or healthcare certificate as part of it. So.
Yeah. So fortunately, it's going to be sort of a very similar answer for me. It was very heavily focused on HSM and the healthcare club. My interest in the MBA stemmed from personal interest in the change in the healthcare system from fee-for-service to value-based care, and sort of the quality metrics and quality improvement projects that have to take place in order for that to occur. And so I was really looking for an MBA program that focused specifically on the healthcare industry and had a very strong both name recognition for healthcare as well as a program that connect people to working on those issues. So for me, it was a great fit. I also just really liked the environment here. I really liked the team aspect of it. So yeah, there really wasn't a question. It was kind of here or nowhere else. Well, it looks like we're running down a question, so why don't we just sort of wrap up and just kind of, maybe you can give a little bit about what your favorite memory is of the first year that you had in the healthcare club.
Yeah, so my favorite memory would have to be I was working on the admissions team. So basically doing all the coffee chats and things of that nature, just to give prospective students an idea of what the Healthcare Club is about and different opportunities that are available within the HSM program. And my favorite memory was during a coffee chat. I had a conversation with one of the prospective students just about my experiences and kind of what I loved about being here on campus. I was very energized about it. Again, I was still a first year, so just super adamant about everything we were talking about. And later on found out that he actually got into Fuqua that year, later that year. And now he's a first year on campus, and we've had a ton of discussions about how, just that one event meant so much to his experience and his decision and where he went to business school. And that, again, just shows, how we can give back and how, it just feels good to see that you can give back to your community the way that it was given back to you. So.
Awesome. I'm going to cheat a little bit and just kind of more of the HSM side of things. But for me, I really liked boot camp. And I was a little bit nervous going back to school after many years away from school, going to business school where I have absolutely no business background. And having that boot camp in which you work on a project with a small team it's a wonderful experience to me. I was on a team with people where half of us had healthcare backgrounds, half didn't. We had a couple of people who'd done consulting. We had a person who'd done sales, and some were international students. And we had to pick a company and make a recommendation for them. And just sort of the process of working together and realizing how our different perspectives were actually really helpful in finding what was actually a pretty meaningful recommendation for this company to both improve that company and improve the healthcare system as a whole. It was really exciting for me, and it was those moments of like, okay, I can do this. This is good, and it's been very helpful, and I'm going to learn a lot in this program. So that was definitely one of my fondest memories.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. If you think of other questions, please feel free to reach out to the Healthcare Club. You should be able to contact us through the admissions website. There should be links to the Healthcare Club. But feel free to reach out to me or James or any other members if you have future questions going forward, and we hope to see you on campus at some point.
Thank you.